Hello and welcome back to The Halfway Point. Today we're talking about cutting through the hype to understand how virtual receptionists actually work in NHS primary care. And I'm pleased to be joined by Dave Mills, who is the head of Think Healthcare. Dave's been a former GP practice manager and is now leading the Think Healthcare programme with the Focus Group and has a lot of experience of deploying these virtual receptionists out to practices. So welcome, Dave, to the podcast. It'd be great to hear your thoughts kind of on the virtual receptionists and how you found these working across general practices. So to get started, really, what are virtual receptionists?
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for having us on, Ben. Really good. So virtual receptionists, there's lots of other terms that can be used for these. AI receptionists, voice agents. These have been around for quite some time. So what a virtual receptionist is, it's effectively a self-serve tool for patients. So you've already got things like the NHS app and a variety of other companies. So you can log in and do all kinds of things as a patient, book an appointment, order a prescription, request a fit note, send a message, and you can do that on web portals as well. What a virtual receptionist is it enables you to do many of those things, but over the phone. So the idea is there's a whole group of patients out there who either can't use an app or a website, might be due to their age or medical condition, learning disabilities, things like that, cognitive impairment disorders. So they need to use the telephone. But we don't, as an industry, want those people to be left behind. So a virtual receptionist enables them to do all those things over the phone, but it also helps with the fact that if you look at the NHS patient questionnaires, patient studies, the majority of patients still say they prefer to contact the NHS over the phone. So there's people that just have a preference for that. If you look at the figures, it's a minority that prefer apps, which is quite surprising, right?
Yeah, I thought it'd be more, yeah.
We all, as an industry, we're all trying to push people down the app route, and we're exactly the same. But there's still a huge number of people there. So that's what a virtual receptionist is. It enables self-serve technology, self-serve features over the phone to mirror what you're doing on an app or a web portal.
So why now then? Why do you think the virtual receptionist, if it's been around for a little while, why is it kind of gaining so much attention now, do you think?
I think it's probably two main reasons. One is the obvious one, right? It's the pressures within the industry, financial and human resource. So we struggle to recruit as an industry. We also struggle to have the financial resource to pay for that. You know, you're really busy in a surgery. What are you going to do? Recruit another 5 doctors, recruit another 5 receptionists to answer the phone in the morning and get through that rush? Well, no, you haven't got the money, the space to put them. So as those pressures become more acute, people turn to technology to find other ways to support that. And given, as we've said, the huge quantities of people coming through the phone systems, everyone's looking for different routes to solve that problem. And the other part of that's making these so popular is the advent of AI. So we mentioned that virtual receptionists are not new. These have been around for over 30 years now. Now, we as a business, I run the health and care division for Focus Group using our Think Healthcare brand. Think Healthcare has been around for 10 years. However, the division that we have acquired who looks after our main virtual receptionist, so ours is called Virtual Care Navigator, they've been doing this for 30 years.
Wow.
So it's not just a new AI thing. They've been doing this for 30 years, all the way through different technologies, all kinds of different integrations. So we, as a business, have seen this all the way through. But the bit that's really brought it to the front of people's minds now is the advent of AI and voice agents, because they take what used to be quite a two-dimensional platform. You know, you'll remember the old telebanking things from donkeys years ago.
Yeah.
Everyone had some interesting experiences. Some were really good, others not so good. But what AI has brought to the table there is that friendly, personal front end. And often that's what people associate with phone calls, right? You know, apps, web portals, a little bit impersonal, but over the phone, lots of people ring their doctor because they like to speak to somebody or they want to talk to someone and have a more of a dynamic conversation, you know. So an app is great if you just want to click and do certain things, but if you want to have a conversation, do multiple things, people want to do that over the phone. And that's what the AI piece has brought. So you can now have a bit more of a friendly interaction with the system. It can show a bit more personality. It can be more flexible in terms of multiple different things to be done at once. And yeah, that with that AI piece has brought it to the forefront as well. So the technology has caught up, made it more friendly. Also, money pressures have led to people looking for a solution to the demand, really.
Yeah, and I think one of the obvious questions when we look at technology like this is, will it replace staff? And I think this is one of those tools that supports the staff that are already there. Correct me if I'm wrong in that assumption, but I think this is a real complement to the existing staff and the existing way practices can work, like you said, so it can meet all of their patient demands. So I think kind of exploring that further then, the obvious use case is something like appointments, booking the appointment over the phone. But where else do you see it working? So what's some of the use cases with the practices that it's rolled out to? Where do you see the virtual receptionist working best?
So just going to your first point there, around what this does with teams and staff. I think you're absolutely right. The demand that we have got within the industry is so enormous from the patients that I don't think there is any one technological solution that we're going to put in and people need to be worried, oh my word, this is going to take my job. As a little bit of experience myself, as I say, we've been doing this for 30 years. So we've seen this at every element of the technical evolution. And whilst, yes, it is theoretically possible to say that this product will save you these hundreds of hours every month and every year, therefore you could, in theory, use it to replace staff. In practice, that doesn't really happen because there's so much additional demand there, that people take the savings and often then repurpose staffing to tackle other clinical priorities, other areas that they're going to be earning money that they did not have the capacity to do so before. So whilst it can be used to make efficiency savings there, more often than not, it's to help people grow their revenue as a business as well. So that's not something people need to worry about too much, I don't think. But it is there as a tool for that if you want to use it as such. To answer your second question in terms of what type of things this can do to help a reception team, so there's almost two answers to this question. So there's a number of new products. Obviously, AI is the new hot topic across every business industry at the moment, and you're getting lots of different companies, lots of different businesses that are producing AI voice agents everywhere. One of the areas that once people have an AI voice agent, they think of. They're thinking, right, where can we sell this to? Where's got a lot of demand and lots of people queuing up on the phone? And the NHS is one of those. So there's a lot of new platforms that have focused on one or two specific areas. So a lot of the newer entries in the market are working around triage and appointments. So the reason for that is because that's the single largest ticket item, right? People are ringing up, they want an appointment. And lots of practices have triage processes to help people to get to an appointment and get to the right appointment. So that's the first thing. The systems can allow people sometimes to book appointments directly into the clinical system without speaking to a human. Others will work with the triage process. So if a practice has got 4 or 5 questions that they want to ask before they can offer an appointment to someone, the voice agent can take that response from them and push that through to the practice so that the practice can then make that triage decision and offer them an appointment appropriately. So it's exactly the same process as with your different apps and web portals. It's just doing it over the phone. So all those people at 8 a.m. ringing up, wanting an appointment, they can speak to and say, yes, this is why I want the appointment. This is the condition I've got. Here are the symptoms. This is how long I've had it. And then that goes through to the practice. They can then respond when they have the time across that morning.
Yeah, and that's brilliant, especially with the changes from the tail end of last year around the 8 a.m. rush. This is providing a solution that is still on the phones. So it's like you said, it's that friendly phone based, semi almost personal touch rather than the app based. And so kind of thinking about some of the AI then, are practices able to see trends and data and stuff? Does the AI collect some of the information? I'm not on about like the scary Big Brother image here, but kind of, I love data. So being able to look at how your practice is performing and what kind of requests that the AI systems are getting. Can the practices see that at the end of it and then obviously make decisions based on that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're looking at an AI model, so it's probably important at this point to say there's 2 main models in the industry for how people access these. With the AI elements, absolutely, there's all kinds of data on how they're working. particularly around how you train them. So any queries or questions that they don't know the answer to, you can see what those were. You can then train the model so that they improve and understand more about your practice. I know we'll come on to sort of some of the information governance and clinical safety pieces later on, but there's an element there around training, particularly around the clinical safety piece there. But very quickly, just around the two different types of virtual receptionists that you've got within the industry at the moment. So AI is, I think most people would agree, is the future of a lot of this type of technology, but not everyone's ready for it yet. So there are patients who don't like it. There are practices who aren't keen. There are whole health board areas who are not ready for AI and are just sort of delaying things until they feel comfortable with everything from a clinical safety perspective. So with the technology in the industry, just so that all listeners know, there are two ways that you can operate a virtual receptionist. One is a traditional menu-driven system. So you can decide what features you want to include in your virtual receptionist and set those up as menu items. So patients can just go press a button or say a number and they'll be able to book an appointment or do whatever else you want that system to do. The second option is the AI option. So that's where you've got an AI voice agent at the front to say, hi, I'm Amy, your medical inquiry expert. How can I help you today? And the patient can then have an actual conversation with that AI voice agent. So those are the two different options. So using that as a quick example, with Virtual Care Navigator that we provide, again, because we've been doing it for so long, we've got both options. So a lot of the newer ones, just AI, but some of the larger systems like ours, you've got a standard menu-driven version for people that aren't quite ready for AI yet, and you've got the AI version if you are, and then you can just flip between the two very easily. But the AI piece does give you additional data. So you get lots of good data from both systems. What the AI is quite good at is looking at different shades of grey. So one of the big things that you're looking for in terms of data is, why are people calling you? And that's something that the AI will be very, very good to help pick up on.
Okay. And I suppose on that note as well, does it work with multiple different languages as well, or is it, or even just accents? You tend to find with the different dialects across the country. I just think of when you were talking about the old systems, I was just remembering booking a cinema ticket and getting the wrong film booked years and years ago. So how does it relate to kind of like either different languages or different dialects of everyone?
So two questions there. One is accents, the other is languages. So let's start with accents. Now, again, looking at the whole industry, there are lots of different solutions that take a different approach to this. So speaking for ourselves, we provide multiple different accents. And we think that that's really important because one of the big elements here of breaking down barriers for patients to use the system, and that is the number one thing, because it's great putting all this technology in, but digital transformation is nothing about the systems. It's nothing about the digital. It's all about the people. That's something that not a lot of people talk about. But it's digital transformation, all about the people. So to get the patients using it, they've got to feel comfortable. And to feel comfortable, having an accent that they recognise that feels local to them is actually quite a big thing. So we provide a number of different languages off the bat, different countries, different regions of the UK. We can also train the model with unique accents. We have heard of something in the industry where a couple of people have said, oh, can we train our senior doctor and have their accent as our voice agent?
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in theory, yes, we can. However, we always advise people don't do that, because one of the really big pieces of virtual receptionists is how you do this stuff safely. Absolutely critical. Now, if you have got an automated system that sounds like one of your doctors, then you're going to have a big group of patients who might not know the difference, and it's going to confuse them. And if they think they've given information to a real human and they haven't, there are all kinds of scenarios there where that could become very unsafe. And they might think they've given the right information over, they haven't. They might think they've spoken to a certain person, they haven't. So whilst that piece is doable, and having it trained on your own people in your own surgery, we generally advise against that. There's a lot of clinical safety elements to that which might not be ideal. Your other question was around languages.
Yes.
And there's not a dissimilar answer to that. So one of the things that we do as an approach. Again, we've been doing this a long time. So we actually use the largest clinical safety organisation in the UK. It's a company called SafeHand. Really, really well known, very well established. That they kind of write the Bible, so to speak, on clinical safety. So we work very closely with them on all these different processes to make sure they're really, really safe. So languages is one of those that does have a really big clinical safety input. So to answer the question simply, can a voice agent use different languages? Yes, it can. Does our own virtual care navigator system use multiple languages? Yes, it can. The caveat there is that we've got a lot more functionality. So we talked earlier about lots of systems just being pretty much triage and appointment based. And that's what the majority in the market do. So we do that as well. But because we've been working for a considerable time, we've got quite a bit more. So if you think about your NHS app and all the different things that can do, whether that's handling your repeat medication or requesting fit notes or doing referrals or all these other clinical tasks or test requests and looking at test results even. So we can actually do all of that over the phone. So we've got a few unique things. So for example, we are integrated with EPS. So a patient can place a repeat prescription over the phone, which is something that loads of patients want to do, but most surgeries, we've all stopped doing that. Because of safety concerns.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're now the only solution out there that's integrated with EPS that can do that safely. So the script request comes in, patient places it, just talks to the system over the phone. It then drops directly into the usual doctor's inbox so they can bulk sign it off with everything else. Fantastic. Saves loads and loads of time. Everyone's happy, really clinically safe. But imagine you want to then translate all that clinical information into another language. How do you do that safely? Well, there are ways, and that's what we're working on at the moment. But they're quite involved, having to have native speakers sign off all the different languages for all the clinical pieces. So to summarize, yes, you can do multiple languages. The way we do that is we have multiple languages for the generic parts of the system that everyone deals with day to day. But then when it comes to the clinical parts, that's the bit that we're still working on, because nobody's yet found a way of doing that completely safely, although we're not far off, so that we can make sure that you're not saying something in English that'll be mistranslated and create a clinical issue for you in French or German or Dutch or whatever else.
Following the success of LPM's very first New to Practice Manager conference, we are bringing them back with dates right across the country. This year, we're heading to Hull, Salisbury, Newcastle and Preston. And the best part, it is completely free to attend. If you're new to the practice manager role and feeling like everyone else has the manual except you are not alone. These conferences are relaxed, practical and honest. Real conversations, useful learning and tools you can take straight back to your practice. You'll also meet trusted industry partners, leaders in their own field who are there to support you and help you grow with confidence. You will leave clearer, better connected and ready to lead. Head to locumpm.co.uk to book your free place and follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook to stay up to date. We would love to see you there. There's a big thing with these systems about what they can do, but it's important to recognise what they can't do as well. I think as well, you've said several times today around safety, which is really encouraging as a practice manager to hear, because we can run off with these shiny toys sometimes and go straight into implementing them. I guess a good starting point then is, what's NHS England's advice around the virtual receptionist at the moment?
Okay, so I'll be careful here not to put my own spin on this, but NHS England have recently issued a document called a Virtual Receptionist Solutions Policy Statement and Advice to Practices document. So that's gone out to all GP practices in England and to all ICBs. So this is their advice to everybody on this subject. Obviously, within England, we've got the NHS England Better Purchasing Framework, which all practices are required to use for their telephony solutions, for advanced cloud telephony. And that's part of the GP contract, so everybody is committed to that. Virtual receptionists do take over parts of that telephony specification. So there are a number of pieces where there are overlap between these and the NHS England contract. And that's pretty much what NHS England were trying to clarify, I believe, in this document. So I would encourage everybody to go and read it. Do you want me to give you a couple of summary pieces?
Yeah, please. It'll be good to get a summary. So kind of what's the overview? What do practices need to be aware of, or almost what should they be asking the suppliers before making a decision?
Absolutely. Okay, so there are probably three main pieces from the NHS England guidance that jump out. So I'm going to read these verbatim. So this is exactly as the NHS England guidance. So the first one says, NHS England has a responsibility to ensure that due consideration has been given to the potential risks and impacts of introducing new products that interface with approved solutions in GP practices, including making practices aware of potential breaches of the GP contract, which is not what any of us want, okay?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
What I'll do is I'll give you these summaries and then I'll explain how we've handled these.
Please, yeah.
I think. So you can give you an idea of things to be asking other suppliers as well. So one of the elements that NHS England mentions here is, in their words, responsibility for the provision of national data sets sits with the BPF telephony supplier contract with the practice. However, the telephony supplier and the practice may lose sight of the overall call volumes once a virtual receptionist solution is in place, and therefore they might not be able to fulfill the reporting obligation. So this is something that we're asked quite a lot by practices. So will a virtual receptionist break any of this? So NHS England have stated there that they feel that if you put a virtual receptionist in, it may impact your ability to provide those data points. So for those that aren't aware, through the cloud telephony framework, through the BPF, NHS England have a data extract. And it's quite similar to GPAD, which people are quite familiar with on the appointment side. But the idea of this one is that GPAD will give you appointment data. So it's the appointments you have delivered. What it won't necessarily give you is the demand on your practice. And that's what they're trying to address here. So they're trying to look at the volume of calls that are coming into a surgery. You know, how busy is the surgery? How much work are you having to do and deal with? Now, we mentioned that there are a number of different ways that these systems can work. There are two main deployment setups within the industry that are worth being aware of. Option one is a virtual receptionist can be delivered as an option from your menu or diverted from your current phone system. So your current BPF phone system will operate completely as normally, and you then have a choice of either saying option one, speak to a receptionist, option two, speak to our self-serve and save you having to wait in a queue. Or it can go into the phone system that you have and divert straight through to your new virtual receptionist tool. So that also is fine because it's coming into your phone system, which is your BPF approved platform, and then it's going out again to the virtual receptionist. So those two are option one pretty much. Option two is you can have a solution that ports the phone number away from your current system. So you've got your phone system through the NHS England contract, and there are some solutions out in the market that take the phone number out of those so that all the calls will automatically go through the virtual receptionist platform. Now, you can achieve that, as I say, by going into your phone system and diverting out again, but porting the numbers away, and this is the bit that NHS England have commented on, can cause issues with the national reporting. So if that virtual receptionist does not have an agreement with NHS England, then it means that all of those calls coming into your platform are not going through your main phone system, which means the data is not being logged. It'll be logged in the virtual receptionist, but that's not part of the NHS England framework, or if there isn't an agreement there with the NHS, then that data is not going to be visible nationally. So when all the BPF providers, when all your phone data that you've signed off through CQRS, when that gets extracted, there's going to be a huge number of calls missing from that data. And that's the piece that NHS England have flagged there. Their specific, again, just reading their words exactly, the NHSE programme view is that practices should carefully consider the porting of the practice phone number to a third-party supplier that is not their contracted telephony supplier, as this goes against standards and capabilities described in the national requirements for telephony. Now, Important for me to say at this point that someone doing that and porting numbers away, they may have an agreement with NHS England.
Absolutely.
So,
Yep.
it's a question to ask your supplier. But if your supplier is not part of the BPF, wants to port the number away, that is a question that is definitely worth asking. So to tell you what we do very quickly, and so we work with the first two options. So we never port numbers away because from our perspective, that introduces too much complexity. It introduces that element of we don't want the data to be missing from these NHS data extracts. You're missing that demand. Ultimately, to improve funding to the NHS, as an industry, we need to demonstrate just how busy we are.
Yeah, we need the information. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
We don't want to be hiding data and having it in places where it won't be seen. So we make sure that when we put Virtual Care Navigator in, that the phone calls are all going through a practice's current phone system, and then they come into Virtual Care Navigator. So you get all the benefits. It can answer every call if you want it to straight away, but you don't miss out on the data of the number of calls coming in. So that's the question, something definitely to consider. And as I say, I would advise everyone to go and look at that NHS England guidance and ask your supplier in detail, and that includes us if you want to come and talk to us.
Yeah,
how you're handling all those different elements in that guidance.
Okay, that's really helpful, and it just backs up. It's not just a tech decision. The governance needs to be there. And if it's not, I guess it's the practice who could potentially be in a contract breach. Not the phone company, not the third supplier. It will ultimately come down to the practice. So that's a really helpful point. Thank you for clarifying that.
The practices are the data controllers. So I think the guidance mentions that it's the practice's decision on what solution, but it's also their responsibility to ensure that they're ticking all the right boxes.
That's really good. Thank you for that. Just focusing on the importance of that area. One kind of final question: where do you kind of see this having an impact on the practice managers and the teams? How does this work from a rollout point of view, in the sense of what can make or break a rollout? Is it a case of getting the teams involved? Is it the setup at the beginning? What do you think about that?
Okay, so the first thing there is the impact that these tools can have are genuinely transformational. We're not talking about tweaking at the edges here. So Virtual Care Navigator, as an example, has won a number of awards over the years. It's the current General Practice Award, Telecom and Product of the Year. And the reason for that, when you look at the case studies, is the figures behind it. There's a long history of track record of what these can deliver. You can halve the number of calls that you've got coming through. But more importantly than that, the patient satisfaction scores for all of your surveys can go through the roof. We've had one that's gone up to 92%, another to 100%. It's a regular thing. However, the thing that all of those successful practices have in common, the ones that are winning these awards, they're getting the really good figures on their case studies. It's all around understanding their own patients and what they're looking for. So everyone looks at call data, they look at quantities. That's great. It tells you a certain amount about what's going on. The big single takeaway is to understand why people are calling. Okay, so in most modern phone systems, including most BPF solutions, you can set up some call tagging so that you can log against which call, why they were ringing. Was it about an appointment? Was it about a prescription? Was it about a fit note? Whatever it was. Look at that data. Have a good understanding of why they're ringing, and then put your self-serve tool in to address those particular requirements. Now, if that's appointments and triage, great. If that's then prescriptions, fantastic. You've got a solution like ours that will be able to do that as well. If it's admin, do that piece. So understand why people are calling, and then what do you want to focus your human beings on? What's the most important piece to you? Some practices have had really good success with routing all the admin pieces to reception, and then having all the triage requirements going through a phone system, an app, a website.
Oh, yeah, it's a good idea.
Interestingly, there are some practices that have taken the reverse view to triage and have said, actually, we want to put the admin through technology. We want the phone systems to deal with the script requests, the registrations, and all of those things. And we want the humans to deal with the triage.
Yeah.
And so we've got a great case study up on the website at the moment about a practice that did that. And every triage request got handled by a human. And then every script request and all the other pieces, the technology dealt with it because it was a bit more repetitive and routine. And the patients loved it. Saved them 1,500 calls every month. Their Google reviews went from about a 2 to a 4 really quickly.
Wow.
And that was a huge contributing factor to that. So there's lots of different ways of doing it, but 2 key takeaways: look at why your patients are calling and what's the most important thing for your receptionists, your humans, to deal with in your practice, and what will go down best with your patients.
That's brilliant, and that's really helpful, and that's a good note to end on. So thank you, Dave, for joining us today and for sharing such valuable insights. As I said, we'll put some of the links we talked about and also the case studies that Dave mentioned. I'll put them in the show notes, and we'll put Think Healthcare's details in there as well. Otherwise, hope you all have a lovely week, and we will see you next time at the halfway point. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, take care.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of The Halfway Point. We hope today's conversations have given you a fresh inspiration and practical ideas you can take straight back into your practice. You'll find all the links and resources we mentioned in the show notes at locumpm.co.uk. The Halfway Point is available on all major podcast platforms in both audio and video formats, so you can tune in however suits you best. If this episode helped you, we would genuinely love to hear from you. Leave us a review or a comment. Not only does it make our day, it also helps us shape future episodes around what matters most to you. Make sure you follow and subscribe so you do not miss next Wednesday's episode. And if you know a colleague who would benefit from this conversation, please share this episode with them. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn and Facebook by searching for the Locum Practice Manager. We're on YouTube too, where we share practical tips and tutorials for primary care managers. Until next time, keep moving forward, keep improving, and we'll see you again next week at the Halfway Point.